It's a nice way of riding. Riding with your buddies is always good. And then a little bit about group riding. So Mark and I, very small group, of course, there's only two of us. Now we're in lane 1, Mark's in position 3 and I'm in position 1. And the reason that we ride like this is so that I can ride relatively close to where Mark is riding. So we are literally, I'm about a second away from the back of Mark's bike, which is great, because now he's indicating, car behind us is moving, so we go out together. Now if something up front was to happen, Mark would be able to stop, but I'd be able to stop in the distance I can see to be clear and obviously shoot by him. Now, in principle you might think that's slightly wrong, but I've got a clear view of the road. Now if I was to go in behind Mark, all I can see is Mark. And the reason that I sit here is because I can see what Mark can see. So when we're riding together, we are seeing the same thing, riding in and out, overtaking together, and then when we get into smaller roads, we're able to keep with each other. So now Mark's looking, so we'll be going in now because he's looking, and we'll go in together. Not only does it look professional when you're coming out and going in together, it ensures that both of you are riding for yourself but riding for each other. So we've got each other in mind when we are actually riding. If you're doing group riding, it's probably best to ride with somebody that you're used to riding with. So Mark will be looking, now he's going out, I can see, I get used to the way that he moves, and we've moved out into the lane together to overtake that van. Our progress isn't being impeded whatsoever. And then after there, Mark will look in, and if he's going to come in, look, I can see his head move, we can move in together. Now the only downside to being on the inside here, obviously Mark's looking for both of us, even though he's only looking for himself. It's a strange thing to say, but because he's looking to see what's happening behind, I need to be aware of what he's doing, not so I don't lose him, but so that I can get out as well. So he's going to be going out into lane 3 as well. And it works both ways. So he'll move out when he needs to move out. But if you're the one at the back of the queue, it goes back to the same principle of us. It goes back to the same principle of us riding and looking for, and planning for an overtake, because you don't want to get boxed in. So the person at the back can look and see, well, we're getting close to that car there, we've got cars coming up behind, Mark will be looking to go in a minute. And if there's a lot of cars, or if you're coming up onto the car in front quite quickly, it's a good thing to be able to indicate and get out before. So you kind of work together. It's better than riding on your own, because riding on your own you kind of get a little bit bored. Sometimes you get a little bit distracted. But if you're riding together, although we're riding for ourselves, it's our own ride, we are in fact actually riding for each other as well. So when Mark goes to overtake, I'll go to overtake, providing it's safe, of course. If there's cars coming up behind quite quickly and we're approaching an overtake, then I'll go out to almost hold people back a little bit so that we can make our manoeuvre without being boxed in. So now there's a lorry coming here. I'm going to go out, because Mark will come out in a minute, but I can see vehicles coming up behind me. And it just means that we are both out at the same time. And you're almost protecting the group leader, if you like, so that we all come out together and all go back in together. It's a nice way of riding. Riding with your buddies is always good. But you've got to be confident that your buddies are going to do the same thing as you. So You know, if you're riding with somebody that's new to group riding or riding with somebody new to you, just hold back a little bit and just see how they're riding. And it's not about saying whether they're a good rider, whether they're a bad rider, whether they're better, whether they're worse. It's just about being comfortable that you know what those other people are going to do. Now, Mark and I have travelled the world together. We've done a lot of our advanced training together. We ride a lot together, so I'm really used to the fact that when we come up to a roundabout, I won't see Mark's brake lights coming on because we very rarely use the brakes because there's no point. These engines on these adventures are just spectacular at just giving you the engine braking. You don't need to be on the brakes all the time. But I'm happy that I know exactly what Mark is doing, and he's happy that he knows what I'm doing. So we're getting close to that BMW now. He's looking, he's indicating, so we're out together. The real good thing about group riding is when you're riding around the world or around the country, whichever country you live in, when you get to a traffic obstruction like a set of traffic lights or, as we've got in England, a roundabout or a junction, you know, all those things, if you're riding as a group, it's really easy to pull up together, to leave together. And what we kind of do with our group riding is in a town, if there's more than 2 or 3 of you, then you kind of bunch up together. And the reason for that is that we take up the space of a car on our own. But if we're going exactly the same way, and you get to a junction, do I want to be behind Mark and then waiting for Mark to see that it's clear, and then when he sees it's clear, to then move up into his position and now see whether it's clear or not? I may as well use Mark's observations for my observations, and by that I mean the lead rider is always in the dominant position. So he gets to the junction first, I'll pull up alongside him, not directly alongside him, but almost half of his bike. And the reason for that would be so that I get much of the same view as him. So he's happy the road is clear both ways and we're going to go. We then both go together if it's safe to do so, which means that I'm not then stuck behind 2 or 3 cars and then jostling position trying to catch up. And it just works so well, but it takes a lot of practice. And I'm not saying that we're experts at all, because we're not. There's always something to learn. But group riding, if you get the chance to practice it with a buddy that you really trust, practice it. And it's amazing once you do a ride, wherever you're going, and you get somewhere, and you've done it together, and you've not got lost, and you've not got in between other cars, and you've taken the junctions at the same time, and you've worked together to get there. It's just an awesome feeling. You may see lots of people moving in and out for lorries, and you might see them moving quite extremely from one side of the road to the next because of a lorry. The difficulty with a lorry is that you get caught in this bubble of air, really, and the bubble of air can really cause a bit of an issue. And it kind of can knock you because you're going away from where the air is being displaced quite a bit. And I always make a point on a motorway of indicating with every manoeuvre that I make. So if I make a manoeuvre to go out into the 2nd or 3rd lane, and then I'm making a manoeuvre to come into the 1st lane, I will always indicate. Because if you indicate, people know what you're doing, and you kind of get in a habit of doing it. There's so many people that don't indicate at all. Now, the highway code says that you should always indicate to go out to overtake, but you don't need to indicate to come in like he did. He's not indicating, so we had no indication that he's actually planning to go off. So there, I'm going to go out because that car's going to potentially be in the way, stop us making a bit of progress. Now, the other thing that I do see is people coming out of a junction like that. Now, that junction, that on-ramp is so that you can build your speed to match the speed of the traffic on the motorway. So you pick your spot and that's where you're going to go. the amount of people in cars and bikes, and a whole host of different vehicles, to be honest, the amount of people that don't treat that properly, and they treat it as a God-given right to put their foot down and just floor it. So the annoying thing is the courtesy. So you pull out into lane 2 to let people out, and then they floor it. It kind of leaves you out in the middle of nowhere. What would be the hassle of using the lane properly, filtering into traffic, fitting in where you need to fit in, and then just letting people go past you and then picking your spot and overtaking? I do not know why they do it. And the other thing that they do is they will not stop. It seems to be alien to people that on-ramp is a giveaway. Doesn't mean that you can just come out and expect people to move out your way, because sometimes it's impossible. If you've got somebody overtaking you in lane 2 and you're in lane 1, it's really impossible to get out their way. So you, as a person coming on the motorway from the on-ramp, you should be slowing down and be prepared to stop. Position 1, so you've got position 1, 2 and 3. So position 3 would be the outside where I am now. Position 2 would be in the middle. Position 1 would be on the left-hand side. Now I always position myself in position 3 on a motorway or a dual carriageway, purely because this is where I would be sat if I was the driver of a car. Now if I'm driving a car and I can see that blue car in front of me now, I might miss the motorbike in between my car and there, because they're not readily viewable. So if I was in position 1, it could mean that I could be overlooked by that driver, and I want to make sure that that driver knows exactly where I am, because I don't want him driving into the back of me, crunching me up or getting in the way. And this is what kind of annoys me. Exactly the same thing as this. I'm doing no faster than I was a second ago, and yet this van is overtaking me. I'm not slowing down and I'm not speeding up either, but this van is just constantly sat right next to me. Why? I'm now in his blind spot, really dangerous place to be. He doesn't need to be there at all. Bizarre. Now he's speeding up again. I really don't understand why people cannot drive at constant speed.
Here we are then, Toby and I riding back from Birmingham from the bike show. We've had a fantastic day walking around yesterday, and we're going to talk about how you ride as a group, or how we ride as a group, which is something that people don't actually do very often, I don't think. We are down in Cornwall, and so don't get to ride on motorways that much. Dual carriageways occasionally, most of it's country lanes, but it's nice to be able to ride in a group, like a two-man group, so we're not really a group, on a motorway. And it's something that people should practice really, because we're riding quite close, but as long as you understand how people are going to ride, it's not really a problem. I understand what Toby's going to be doing. We're keeping our eye on the traffic behind, and as soon as he's indicating, I'm moving out with him. So we're actually taking up only about the same distance or amount of motorway as a big van or a car or something like that. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to ride as a block, so as Toby sees the gap he needs to move into, I'm close enough that I can move out with him. He's in position 3 of the lane, so he's in the same sort of position that a right-hand drive car driver would be in. I'm, if you imagine, in the passenger seat but behind him, but I can see right ahead everything I need to see. I've got plenty of time if I need to brake. And as Toby moves out, he indicated there, I just move out with him. It's a very easy way to ride. And the fact that we're riding reasonably close, probably about 10 metres away from each other, it's not that much of a problem, because I've got plenty of space in front of me. He's obviously got space in front of him. And I know pretty much what he's trying to achieve. and how we're going to do it. Now, I wouldn't do this on a country lane necessarily, because you need to ride your own ride. But this on a motorway, constant speeds, not too busy, it's easy, and people behind you understand, well, some of them do, what you're trying to achieve, and you're not actually holding traffic up, actually fitting in, and we're not. People will get frustrated, I suppose, because you're moving in and out of lanes all the time. But by not hogging the middle lane or in the outside lane, we're allowing traffic to overtake us if it needs to. We're doing 70 miles an hour, both in cruise control probably. It's a very, very efficient way of riding. The only problem comes when you're trying to move out and you get these idiots in the cars who see what you're trying to do, you're indicating to move out, and then they go, oh, I can just get past that bike, and you've indicated moving because you've got an obstruction, perhaps you want to get round, you know, a vehicle and want to do an overtake, and then these morons in the outside lane then go, oh, I can just get past that bike and box you in. People need to be a bit more tolerant of each other on the motorways, I think. It's important when you're doing these manoeuvres on a motorway or a dual carriageway to carry out really good lifesavers, because cars are very, very quick to come up on you. The UK speed limit is 70, but if you're on an autobahn in Germany where there's an open speed limit, you know, you've got to be so careful and make sure your space is there before you move into it. What you find car drivers and truck drivers quite often do is they indicate and then look in the mirrors, and it's almost like bullying, really. They're bullying you into a position where, you know, they're moving out into the lane, and just because they've indicated, like, it's almost like a God-given right that they can move out into that lane then. So you have to be so aware, much more aware on a motorbike, I think, than driving a car. And I find, I drive trucks as well, Arctic trucks, and obviously cars, and I find driving a car really, really, well, not stressful, but tiring on a motorway. Because you've got to concentrate, it's like, there's just so many idiots around. But because I drive trucks, I think I tend to be more sympathetic towards truck drivers. You know, they've got a job to do. And people get so annoyed with them, you know, when they're trying to overtake, and you know, it might take them 3 miles to get past another truck, because in the UK our trucks are limited to 56 miles an hour. Obviously they can go up to 60 miles an hour in a truck. That's breaking the speed limit once you go over it. So people go, oh, you know, trucks are limited to 56. Well, they can do 60 downhill easily. And people just don't give them the respect that they really should have, because a truck is never ever going to stop the same way a car is going to stop. And if you're driving a 44-ton truck, which is what you're allowed to in the UK, there we go, both indicated, plenty of time, and Moran in the middle lane just stayed where he was. That's the dangerous thing. That's why over the shoulders are so important when you're on a motorway like this. So getting back to trucks, you know, 44 tons of truck is not going to stop the same way that a car does. But people still insist on pulling in front of trucks, thinking they'll do it, you know. And it is the bane of my life when I'm driving a truck. The inconsiderate car driver and motorcyclists, I've got to be honest. But don't get me wrong, there are some truck drivers who are just as bad and will bully their way onto the motorways and things. So it'd be nice if everyone was a little bit more tolerant of each other. So clearly what Toby's doing when he's moving, he's getting himself, he's in the outside position, the position 3 on the lane, and he's always checking his mirrors, which he should do. So many people don't. It's as important to know what's going on behind you as it is in front of you. And I can anticipate when he's trying to move out, because he always does a lot big over shoulder, then indicates, and then moves out. It's really simple. And it's very smooth, none of this braking, and you see how many times you see motorcycles get right up behind cars and then they have to brake. A little bit of planning and forethought, and you shouldn't have to do that. So on our motorway here, this is the M5 motorway, heading down towards the southwest of the UK. They've got these little arrows painted on them. It's only for a couple of miles, and in between cars there should be 2 arrows between each car for safe braking distances. And you'll see we've got this car right behind a tanker there, probably got less than 8 meters behind a truck, and I know that that truck can't see that car behind him. So the sun's come out now, and it's just above my, I've got a K-Berg Tormax helmet that's got a visor on it, and the sun is above my visor, but I know Toby hasn't got one, and the sun is going to be right in his eyes, even though he's got his sun visor down. This is one of the problems of riding in the winter in the UK. So in about another half an hour's time, that's going to be right in our faces. On a recent tour I was on in Norway, we had 9 bikes riding in the same formation that we're riding in now. So a bike behind me would have been in position 3 on the lane, and the bike behind him would have been in the same position I'm on now. And we were going down the autobahns in Germany really very efficiently. It makes it so much easier for other drivers because it shortens down the distance between vehicles, as long as everybody is confident enough to do it and has good observation skills, looking way ahead to plan, you know, what people are going to be doing, not just driving for themselves but driving for everybody. It works very, very well, rather than having 9 bikes in a big long line with, you know, the 2 seconds in between each bike. Suddenly you've got 9 bikes to be stretched out over a distance of about 600 or 700 yards, which on a motorway, a busy motorway, is an issue, and it does cause, you know, frustration and difficulties for other drivers. One of the things that's quite important is the guy that's at the front. I know Toby's got it in cruise control at the moment. Here we go, he indicated out the lady behind me. This lady here doesn't want to move out, even though Toby's moved out. That's a typical example of somebody who doesn't look in their mirrors and understand what's going on. So Toby, the car was right behind me, plenty of space for me to pull out. Toby indicated, I indicated, and all she did was pull up alongside me and block me in.
So anyway, if you've liked the video, give it a massive thumbs up. It always helps us a ton. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you in the next video.